It's now September and autumn is now upon us. Something that has always has my heart are those Pinafore overall dresses. In fact, the skirt I am wearing right now, I made into a Pinafore dress with a removable bib. This was years ago when I was maybe 15 or 16. For my dress, I want to make something similar. This time I'll be using a real pattern that I'll tweak just a little bit. My dream Pinafore dress has the skirt. It'll have side closers on it like overalls do. There'll be side pockets. The waistband will actually be at my natural waist. The goal is to have the skirt part be removable and able to be worn by itself. The bib, I'll have a big pocket in the front because, a girl can never have too many pockets. And I'll also have the back. I'm undecided if the back will have straps all the way to the waistband or if I'll also have a little bit, you know what I mean. The pattern I'm using is called the Women's Denim Sundress Pattern. It's a free download from Do It Yourself for free. I've linked them down in the description. Their sizes range from a 34 to a 48 European. In addition to the PDF pattern, the instructions are included with the download. The instructions themselves are in German, but I was able to use Google Translate. Here is what the finished dress will look like. As you can see, it's missing some of those details that I described earlier that I wanted, but I'll try to make it work. The fabric I'm using is this gorgeous maroon corduroy. I went and thrifted it a year ago, and there was 10.5 yards. Can you believe it? The price was only $2.99 for this. That's like 10 cents a yard. It's like the deal of the century. I've already used some of this fabric to make a hooded cloak last year. For notions, the instructions say I need a 16 centimeter zipper, 2 ladder buckles, and denim buttons. Or they're called jean buttons, I think, in the US. I'm gonna see if I can get by with closing the skirt with only denim or the jean buttons. And I might use normal buttons for the clasps instead of the ladder buckles. Something else I'll need to add is either like snaps or buttons on the waistband to make the bib removable. So without further ado, let's get started. The first step was laying out the pattern and seeing if there's any changes that needed to be made. So I finished taping it together. Well, almost finished taping it together. And if you notice, I have a jean skirt on the side. That is one of my favorite skirts I have. And the pattern is way shorter than that. That's kind of the length that I want. So I think I'll be adding some pattern pieces or more fabric in between just so the skirt of my Pinafore dress matches the skirt of my denim skirt. I just measured it and there's a 6-inch difference between these two skirts. I have longer legs for my size, so definitely need to go with the longer length. I'm going to start with my fabric, which I conveniently have located in this garbage bag. And here it is, the 10 yards or whatever's left from when I made my cloak. These little pieces will probably be good for when I'm doing pockets or the other little parts of the dress. I'm gonna cut the cameras and see what I can do with the patterns. Okay, so this is what I came up with for the pattern layout. It is hard. It doesn't even fit in the whole screen I can see. But it's like I was saying, it's hard because I have to follow the stripes of the corduroy, and I also have to follow, I believe it's called the nape. One side is smoother when you brush it down, and this side can feel a little bit of resistance to the corduroy, so it has to all be one direction, which is very hard. And to make matters worse, there is a fold in the center. Well, it's not even directly in the center if you see, but the fold right over here is kind of permanent, and it doesn't well, I haven't tried washing it out, but it doesn't iron out. And when I made my cloak, that was a problem, and it's still in there. Let me just scoot up my camera so you can see the rest of the placement. Well, here are all my pattern pieces. It's hard once again to fit them all on the screen. But there are 3 of these pockets because 2 on the back, and I want 1 on the bib, 1 back skirt panel. And if you notice, there are 1, 2, 3 of this part. I want to maybe use 1 of these as a front pocket. And then there's 1, 2 of the back, and the front skirt way up is for the button zipper placket. The right over here is the straps, and this one and that one are the waistbands for the skirt. That is a lot of fabric. I think I used maybe about 2 yards. Like I said, there was a lot of fussy cutting and patterning, and I did in fact mess up with the direction, some of the pieces. I still have quite a big heft of fabric, as you can see, so I could make another project with this. To transfer the markings and seam allowance, I'm just using some regular chalk here. I'll show you how to do with these pockets. First, I should iron, but I'm going to do this after. So I have it on the front of this one, which needs to actually be on the back, but to get straight lines, I needed it on the front. Oop, if I get this in frame here. So, just gonna show you on this guy. I can bend up the side and see where he's supposed to be at. Line up the center line. Then just take the chalk, go all along the outside. It's okay if you go over the paper somewhat. So it would have been easier if I already had it done before I cut it out. Just to double check. Here's this line right there. And it's a little off, but it shouldn't matter too much. Transfer onto this one. Just gonna set him on top here. Rub him down. And it's really hard to see, but there is a little ghosting. I can just make darker. Or I could put the pattern on it again. And do it to this third one. Oops. This one is harder to see. So I'm just going to take my paper pattern and set it in place where I can see the ghosting. And once again, just go along the outside. And that's how I make my markings for the seam allowance. After marking out the seam allowances, I ironed all my pieces. I should have ironed before I marked them out, but I didn't. Here I'm showing how I sewed the fabric to make it appear like I joined two panels together. This reduced the bulk by one layer of fabric, but with this thick corduroy, I needed that. This was on the front panel, the skirt, and eventually I would have had to unpick everything I'm doing here. The thread was too loose. The top stitching looked fine, but if you turned it underneath, it looked like a rat's nest. And one more thing was wrong with it, but you'll find out later. On almost all my seams, I sewed a double top stitch to give it a more professional look. This means if I ever had to unpick anything, it took twice as long and it took twice as long to fix. Here I'm showing how I transferred the darts from the pattern piece. First I laid the pattern on top of my fabric and I pushed a sewing needle through the point of the dart. This is so I could remove the pattern piece eventually. I went and marked the end points of the dart on the fabric so I knew the start on both sides
and the point where they met. Once I removed the pattern piece, I used the straight edge of the pattern piece to run chalk from one point of the dart to the point, and then I repeated the process on the other side of the dart.
Just gonna give a quick update on my sewing progress. If you can see, and if it will focus. Let's see, focus please. There we go. One side has a lot of these loops, the other side is all nice. My sewing machine does not like to do cotton thread, which I'm using because it's the only maroon thread I have. So I switched to walking foot and it has helped a lot. There are some areas that's messing up, but not as bad. I got the darts in and the fake stitching done on the front of the skirt and the back of the skirt. I did the tops of the pockets. Next I'm going to do a zigzag stitch around so I can sew them on the front of the bib and the skirt. I did the actual joining of two fabrics with the front. Now this is really stiff. I'll need to go and combine the front and the back to the backing in the front. And for the back bib, all I did, it will show up, is just do 2 stitches. I didn't try to do a fake stitch at all. And that's where I'm at. Sewing on the pockets required so many pins. First, I needed pins to hold the seam allowance down, and then I also needed pins to go and keep it to the bib or the back skirt panel. The pins weren't strong enough to go through both the seam allowance and attach it to the bib. If you notice, I'm moving the fabric back and forth while I'm pushing in the pin. I'm doing this because I'm using the crack in the sewing table to push my pins through all those layers of fabric without damaging the wood of the sewing table underneath. Here's another sewing update. I have the back pockets sewn onto the back panel of the skirt. Both the front and the back bibs are complete, and I included the straps. That was super difficult to do. Next up, I have to cut out better pockets. Here's my pattern, and this time I'll actually get the fabric to lay the right way with the, I believe it's called the pilling. Fact check on that. With it all facing downwards and not so large. I have, hello, focus, there we go, the button plackets to sew onto the back, and I already zigzag stitched along the front and back skirt panel sides, and then waistbands. And that's where I am sitting. Like I said, next I'll go and complete the pockets and put on the button plackets. Well, I bent the needle. This is only the second time I've ever bent a needle while sewing. Ironically, the first time, well, it actually snapped, was when I was sewing my cape with this same exact fabric. Oh well. I'm replacing the needle, but look how cool these old Singer sewing needle packages are. They don't say a year on them, but I'm gonna guess 80s or 90s or even 2000s. Look at all of this. It's crazy to think they were only $1.15 or $2. Here it is compared to a new package.
If you're sharp-eyed, you might have noticed what I did right there. I forgot to flip my pocket over to make a mirror image. So now I just traced out two of the same side pocket. Not my brightest moment there. Before I attached the pockets to the front of the dress, I made sure that I zigzag stitched along the entire outline. This is so it wouldn't fray as I put my hand in and out. The corduroy fabric was too thick to do a double hem on all the edges, so the best way to stop fraying was the zigzag stitch. If you had a serger, you could also serge around the edges.
I just finished sewing on and top stitching the waistband on both the front and the back, and today has not been my sewing day because I sewed in a pin and I had it all completely done. Oh well, have to unrip it. So I just sewed the two sides together and it is a little big. I need to figure out how to make it smaller, but my whole day of sewing might have just been a waste. We'll see. I'll see if I can explain my chicken scratches here. And sorry for my voice, I am sick again. So here's the front of the skirt and here's the back of the skirt. With the old middle seam, it is about 17.5 inches, and the back, which will stay, is 15 inches. So add those together, that is 32.5, and my waist is about 25.5, so that means I need to reduce it by 7 inches. That's probably not going to happen, because when I take my low hip measurement on both where the skirt front and back meet, the front right now is at 20 inches and the back is at 18, and like I said, the back is staying. So add those together is 38, and my low hip measurement is about 35, so that's 3 inches that I can only reduce without making this too tight of a skirt. Fitted for my waist, I'll just be a looser fit or a low hip situation. I have marked two pins about an inch from the original location, which takes about 1 1/8 off, and that leaves about 2 1/4 on each side to the pockets. Now I need to figure out the math. I also went and folded it where the seam used to be. Need to figure out the math for how this sizing will work. So a lot more math ahead of me. Okay, I have it at the new pinned location. It is pinned all the way down, and it's only pinned at the button plackets. This side is open, but it sits nicely. It's not exactly at my natural waist. To be at my natural waist, it'd have to be up here. Then again, I'm never gonna get it that tight and accommodate my hips. But I think I'm gonna try sewing this and see how it goes. Okay, I'm gonna try to explain how I'm gonna put the two skirt panels together and do the center seam. So I will have to go and cut it down the center, but I have my 2 measurements. Oh, and by the way, these are just the bibs. So I'm gonna have right sides facing out and put one on top of the other so they overlap as far as I need. Then I would just sew down the center here, and I can try it on after that, not commit too much. After that, I will take them and then you fold. It's hard to explain and hard to show. I'm holding up my phone stand with my elbow because it wants to fall. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yes, once it is sewn, I will take both sides and the raw edges are here. I will flip it over. Whoop. And it will be like this. Both ends are inside and nice edges are on each side. So it's like this is one side of the panel, front panel, with the right side facing out. This is the other side of the right panel with the right side sticking out. Where my nails is, that would be the raw edges. So I overlap them and then I sew down here. Then I'm done, I flip it around and sew my 2 top stitches here and there. And then you can see that the raw edges are caught inside. It will be 4 layers thick of fabric. And that's what I plan on. I finally got it together, or I guess to work. Right now everything's just held in place by safety pins. But here it is. Let's see if I can get the back. Next up, I just have to hem and put on all the hardware. I picked these up from Walmart, and hopefully I can find the buckle part for overall bib, but Walmart apparently doesn't sell those anymore. I had another little whoopsie sewing project, nothing too big. So I got the buckles from Joann's because Hobby Lobby was out of this color and Walmart doesn't sell them. But the buckles and straps are not compatible. You see, the buckle is just too small. I have to take off about 1/4 inch. So that means unpicking all of the top stitching and redoing the straps all together. Yay! Here is a zoomed up shot of my buttonhole. It is still not working. This one, the thread snapped again, but I figured out that the length was too tight in stitching. This one was good until it got to the end here, and then it got stuck and it went over and over. This is the result. These tall little piles of thread, which is why my thread keeps snapping. And that is not what's supposed to happen. I'm gonna have to problem solve some more. Finally got a buttonhole to work. I did it on the other side of the fabric and only 1 layer, so I'm not sure if the piling on corduroy is making it hard to go forwards and backwards. But something else I did was change the width from 9 to 3, and it cannot do the little button one, but it can do the big one. So hopefully it will work for the rest of the buttonholes. One last buttonhole update before I do the real thing. I have it on both sides, or double layer fabric. The only thing that stopped is that I ran out of bobbin thread, but it looks pretty nice on the top. And the back as well, that's where it caught the bobbin end. But I think I'm gonna go with it, and hopefully it works out on the dress. I'm trying to install the buttons, and of course the first one did not work out. It is too low. I'm just kind of over this project at this point. I finally got the buttons in on the sides. I just need to put in the fake buttons and put skirt hooks up top. But now I am trying to determine for the front of the bib. This isn't attached yet. I've marked out from the template, but this seems so low to me. I'm thinking it would be more here, about, I don't know, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch difference. So I'll need to think about this one for a little bit. And what can go wrong has gone wrong again. I was supposed to put the snaps on the front of the bib, and as you can see, they are on the back. Thankfully, I've only gotten 3 done, but I basically have made this dress twice over. When it came time to attach the buckles button, I tried using the Joanne brand, but the tack bent. And when I compared the 2 buttons from the Good brand and then Joanne's brand, you can see that the brass, the hole, is right in the center. But the Joanne brand, it is not centered, and I believe that is why my button and tack were crooked. I have to redo the waistband again because the sew-on snaps aren't strong enough. I have worn it once. I didn't have enough straps to begin with, but I had it with safety pins, and I'm glad I did because it kept unsnapping. So I have some non-sew-on snaps I'm going to attach, but that means I'll have to take out the waistband again to insert them. Yay! Well, I ended up having to seam rip even more than I was expecting. Apparently the prongs for the snaps cannot go through 4 layers of fabric. Had to do the nice stitching on the outside, and I'm gonna hope I can get through the little hole I left to turn the bib inside out. But 1 layer, I don't know if you can see it right over there, the prongs can go through 1 layer, but not 4 layers of corduroy. I was hoping that I could have used my crocodile to put these snaps on, but it looks like I would ruin them, so it's the old-fashioned hammering for me. I think I have successfully gotten the snap together. If you'll focus, there is a little bit of a gap on this side. I think as it's competing with the big bulk, because if I put it like this, it is actually slanted. And you might have noticed I kept this little snap because I did think it would be too much go through 8 layers because I had to do the center and with 2 separate fabrics and, mash them together before. I'm glad I left that, or else that would have been more steps for me. Finally done. I was planning on finishing this dress in time for my birthday in mid-October, but that obviously hasn't happened. My next goal was at Thanksgiving, and I did finish it enough to wear, but it wasn't complete yet. I need to finish it more. The reason was that the snaps I was using was the sew-on ones, and those were not strong enough to hold up. So I had to go and buy some non-sew snaps to put on. And that's another story. Now it's the last Sunday of 2024, and I've finally finished the dress. One of the reasons it took so long to complete was that I didn't have much time or energy for sewing. I really love the design of this dress. I like the A-line style of the skirt. I'm glad I added extra length to the bottom of the skirt and the waistband area of the bib. I love the extra pockets that I added to the bib and the front of the skirt. You girl can never have too many pockets, like I've said. The removable bibs are cute in theory, but the snaps detach from the skirt. I don't mean that the snaps will come unsnapped. The socket part of the snap will pull away from the prong part of the snap, which is supposed to keep it to the fabric itself. I think the corduroy fabric that I use is a little too thick for these snaps, even with only one layer. I'm a little mad that I had to re-sew almost the entire dress again. I'll try to cover everything quickly. So the skirt was too wide. I had to re-sew the center seam. The straps themselves weren't catching when I sewed them on. They kept popping out of the bib, and I sewed one of them on upside down once. The straps were also too wide for the buckles that I got, so I had to re-sew those. Maybe check the size of your buckle before sewing your straps next time. I learned a lesson. The thread was too loose on my machine when I started, so I had to re-top stitch the front bib. The back bib was fixed by then, but like the pockets on the back of the skirt and this front bib were too loose, but I mean, this one's inside fabric, so it doesn't really matter. I think the only thing that I didn't change was the back of the skirt. I mean, that was pretty okay. The finished style is almost identical to this 1970s Simplicity dress pattern, which I love. And I guess that's the making of this dress. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Happy crafting!